All right, well, welcome to In the Pocket with Rich Gannon. Rich, as always, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I've had my cup of coffee, and I'm ready to do this because I know I sound like a broken record, but another heartbreaking loss for the Raiders. 4 lead changes in the final 3.5 minutes. Raiders, of course, lose by 1, 26-25. Your thoughts as you watched this game Saturday night?
I watched the whole thing as I always do. Erin, and that was painful. I mean, you know what the players and the coaches have vested in that effort, to try and get a win and in a primetime game, and as disappointing of a season as it was, to be able to fight and battle to the end and really have that game won, and then not get the result that you feel like you earned. So I know what that feels like. It's a painful feeling, but if you can't take that painful feeling and do something positive and constructive with it, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You have to go back in the off season and look at every single play, every mistake, get it corrected, get it figured out. Why are they continuing to happen? And learn how to finish games late. And it really boils down to discipline and the details of your assignments and execution. And there just hasn't been enough of that, consistently enough of that throughout the course of the first 15 games.
And you talk about learning how to finish games late. How about learning how to finish the season? Because at one point, this team, 6-3, eyeing the postseason, a lot of people taking notice of the Raiders and what the Raiders were capable of. A young team with a lot of potential. What do you make of the Silver and Black's December struggles? Because this isn't new for this team.
It's not new, as you point out. You go back to last year, they were in the very same situation. They were 6-3, and they go on a streak where they lose 4 or 5. And I always say good teams don't lose 2 in a row, let alone 3 in a row. And, it really boils down to, I think, offensively you could say, hey, we're scoring points, but we just get up too many points defensively. Defensively, you could look at the offense and say, hey, turn the ball over. I mean, there's a great poem, The Man in the Mirror, and I always look at that, and after every game I always focus on what I see in that reflection looking back at me. What could I have done differently? And I just think there's a lot of young players on the defensive side of the ball that need to grow up in a hurry. I mean, I look at Clelin Ferrell, Jonathan Abram, Damon Arnett. Arnett had a big bust in a game and a critical play, the last play of the game, and you go back and look at the assignment there and the responsibility, and why did he not carry that receiver when there's no threat of number 2 in the flat? So I look at those young players, and they've shown flashes, but they haven't shown the consistency. All 3 of those guys are first-round picks. They need to grow up in a hurry. They need to play better. They need to be more accountable. They need to be more productive on a weekly basis. And it takes coaching, but it takes the players to realize that they were number 1 draft picks for a reason. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, all 3 of them have underperformed.
Certainly a good point there, Rich. Of course, we like having you on because you never hold back, and we appreciate your input on the team. And I feel like we've gotten that now out of our system, and it is time for some good news. Okay? Because the good news is Darren Waller performed lights out. Yet again, week in, week out. This is a guy that contributes big time and, of course, continuing to break records, right? The first 3 receptions in the first half, he set a new Raiders record for most receptions in a single season by a tight end with 96. And, of course, after the game, Gruden said of his tight end, he is one of the best players I've ever seen play football. We've talked about him before, of course, you and I. What do you believe he means to Gruden and to this football team?
It's an incredible find. I mean, his story, which everyone is aware of, is an amazing story of perseverance, of overcoming a lot of adversity and odds. But, Erin, what we need to focus on is the work that this guy has put in to be one of the best in the business. And I think the other players, the younger players we just mentioned, maybe need to look at the way he goes about his business, the way he goes about preparing and getting himself physically and mentally ready to play games each week. I mean, the guy has been very consistent, extremely productive. We talk a lot about, how you try and handle him. I mean, John's done a great job moving him around formationally, different personnel groupings, motioning him, putting him outside the numbers. It doesn't matter if it's a linebacker, 2 linebackers, linebacker to safety, corners go out there. He beats all of them. And he has the body of a tight end, but the skills of a receiver, and that's just so unusual and rare. And you look at the tight end position in our game today, the great ones you mentioned, obviously Darren and obviously Kelsey and Kittle and those type of players, they can attack and really beat up the middle of the field. And I think you look at it from a quarterback's perspective and you see how Derek really is on the same page with them. The quickest way to the end zone is right down the middle of the field. It's also directly in the line of sight of the quarterback. And that's why I think he's been so productive, not only inside, but outside the numbers as well.
And I love that you mentioned maybe other players should take notice of what he's able to do, because he's a humble guy. He works really hard. And like you mentioned earlier, this is a guy the Raiders gave a second chance to. Really kudos to the Raiders for, like you mentioning, finding a good find in Darren Waller. And you talk about giving players a second chance. How about one of the best free agent pickups of this year, not just for the Raiders, but for the entire league? I'm talking Nelson Agholor. This is a guy that caught his 8th touchdown reception. I think last year with the Eagles, he only had 3. So the guy's already almost tripled his production with the Raiders in one season. And we've talked about him before. This is a guy that's caught the attention of the entire NFL, and hopefully a guy we can bring back when it comes to free agency next year, because his contract, unfortunately, is up this season.
Yeah, he's really earned it. And, maybe the most improved player at that position in the National Football League, and a guy that has really come in, taken advantage of the opportunity, really bought in, learned the system, spent extra time working with Derek. I think it's his yards after the catch, his big play ability, the consistency, which he didn't always have when he was in Philadelphia with the hands. I mean, the catch he made, and not only the catch, but the run he makes to really win the game for the Raiders. Amazing. But I'm happy for guys like that, Erin. I'm happy for players who it doesn't come easy to. They have some adversity, but they're able to rebound and grow from it. I think he's a player that certainly has. And I hope and I anticipate he'll be back with the silver and black in 2021.
Yeah, I think the fans love him. And one of the things that he's most loved about is he's a guy that's in the locker room helping others. He was a guy relied upon when injuries were taking out some of our younger wide receivers. He's a guy that, just can be counted on and moved up the depth chart. And certainly, like you said, has a good chemistry and connection with Derek Carr for sure.
And Erin, he's also been an unselfish player at the position. He's a veteran player that's been able to help the young receivers, the 2 rookie receivers. He's taken them under his arm. And I think that's important. Not every player does that, but just in talking to some of the staff and talking to John, he's been that type of player for the young receivers. And that's really, really important.
Yeah. And that says a lot about him. I agree with you on that. Okay. Last question. We're eliminated from the playoffs officially on Saturday night with our loss. But, we got to finish strong, end the season with momentum. We've got an AFC West rival on deck in the Broncos. What do you want to see out of this team in this regular season finale?
Let me just tell you a quick story, because I know you have 30 seconds for me, Erin, because you've been so patient with me all year. But John's second year with the Raiders, 1999 is my first year. And we went to Arrowhead on January 1st, 2000. And we were 7-8. And we went in there, and if the Chiefs would have won the game, they would have won the AFC West and clinched a playoff spot. If they lost the game, they were out of the playoffs. They didn't even win the West, and they were out of the playoffs. We went in there, we started slow, we had a bunch of injuries, but we just battled, and we won that football game. Knocked the Chiefs out of the playoffs, and we finished 8-8, and we had some confidence, but we carried that confidence and that momentum into the offseason. The next year we come back, we go 12-4. We go on to win 3 straight AFC West titles. We go to 2 AFC championship games. We go to a Super Bowl. What's my point? My point is every game in this league matters. And to be able to go and finish the last game of the season and it's Bronco week, beat the Broncos and head into the offseason with some confidence, feeling good about yourself. And what do I want to see out of this football team? I want to see the same thing I want to see every week: toughness, determination, grit, passion, professionalism, taking pride in what you do. And I just think that's really important. I want to see it. This film, to me, in week 16 is going to be really important for the players. I'm going to watch it very closely. I'm going to see who's really working, who's competing, who's fighting, who's clawing to the finish, and who maybe is thinking about the off season and packing up that U-Haul and heading home early. That to me is going to be very, very important as I go back and review and analyze that tape.
I love that you shared that story because I think that's a really good point. This is a young team, end on a high note. And like you said, go into the season with some hope during the off season, make some changes, and maybe you could go 12-4 and do that like Rich Gannon. Rich, as always, we appreciate when we get the time. Thank you so much, sir. We'll see you next week.
Erin, sounds good. Thank you.